Welcome to our February 2026 update on Defence's capital and estate works pipeline for New South Wales. So why are we here? We're here to find opportunities to work with Defence in 2026. So this presentation will give you the foresight you need to be competitive. We're going to start with capital works and then move into the estate works projects. This presentation builds on last November's briefing by Security and Estate Group. And what I've done is I've filled in additional context and some of the details that were skimmed over during Defence's presentation. Now, having attended several of these briefings over the past few years, and particularly comparing it to July's presentation, I can say that November felt a little different. CFI was holding back something. And last week's release of the estate audit report gave us the answer I was looking for. So Defence is set to sell off some major pieces of infrastructure across the country in the coming decade. And this has really affected the investment outlook, introducing some uncertainty, but also possibly creating some opportunities in the long term. Focusing on capital facilities and infrastructure branch, Brigadier Quinn took over from Ron Tilley at the start of last year. Under him, there are two executive directors. Ease Rainey provides the continuity within the branch, while Colonel Reynolds will be handing over to Colonel Simon Everett at the start of this year. Beneath them are 8 directors, and each of them has a team of project directors and project staff. All up, there are 135 CFI projects currently in delivery across Australia. That's 3 less than there was at the mid-year. Now, last financial year, 20 new projects were approved by Parliament, adding a record $7.7 billion to the program. Since July, approved investment grew by 3%, but unapproved investment sank by 14% as projects in planning were either cancelled or scaled back. Now, while there's been no change to the top line figure of approved funding in New South Wales in the second half of 2025, the bad news is that the long-term investment pipeline in New South Wales has contracted by $1.2 billion. Now, Victoria and the ACT, on the other hand, saw pipeline growth in the second half of 2025. Looking more closely now at New South Wales pipeline, we see here a breakdown by property, and I'm going to go through these in a bit of detail. So in green, we have the approved investment, and then in orange, we have investments that are yet to be approved. So the big question is, where has the $1.2 billion of unapproved work gone? The answer lies in our 2 biggest air bases of the New South Wales region. So RAAF Richmond has seen $1 billion removed from its pipeline, and RAAF Williamtown has seen $290 million removed from July to November. Now, before anyone panics, I want to say that there is some conflicting advice in the presentation. Firstly, there is word that RAAF Richmond redevelopment, which is currently in design under Lend-Lease, while the designers currently have pens down, they've been told that the design will restart in the next few months. And as for RAAF Williamtown, CFI is still flagging this project as being real. It's called ESTA 6500 Phase 1, Facilities to Support the Air 6500 Integrated Air and Missile Defence Command and Control. The RFT is expected in Q2 of 2026, and Defence even mentioned a shortlist from the DIP-MC panel. That's the Defence Infrastructure Panel for managing major construction. So that panel members on the shortlist are Hanson Yuncken, Icon, Richard Crooks, and Seymour White. It was noted during the presentation that the start date for this has slipped due to some government approvals, but it is still a real live project. So the point of contact is the PMCA, Mark Tyler from Jacobs, and the CFI director is Will Stevens. So if you're an optimist, then there was just an error in the chart. But if you're a pessimist, then both this project and the one at RAAF Richmond may have been postponed indefinitely. Only time will tell. The other big decline in New South Wales is at Garden Island in Sydney, where looking between the July and November briefings, the approved scope rose by $10 million with another year added to the end of the green line, but the unapproved scope dropped by almost 150 million, with the start date delayed by 2 years. So that takes the value of unapproved work down from 1.75 to $1.6 billion at Garden Island. So this investment relates to EST 02060, the Garden Island Precinct Subprogram main site, which includes the remediation of the dry dock infrastructure and upgrades and replacement of the fleet headquarters, as well as remediation of infrastructure, including fuel infrastructure on the island. So this project may be subject to EPBC referral, and at this stage it's in fairly early development stage and is yet to be considered by the investment committee, the government or the PwC. Defence has been in negotiations with its preferred design services consultant, which is an AECOM-Oricon joint venture, for some months due to the complex procurement strategy. We're told that the project will be delivered via multiple packages with a mixture of head contracts, guaranteed maximum price contracts and managing contractor contracts over an 8 to 10 year period. My understanding is that the designer has been asked to go back and redo the master plan again, which will be the third time in the past 7 years. Now, related to Garden Island is Chowder Bay, which saw projected investment double in size to $180 million, but the start date has also been delayed by 2 years. Now, this investment relates to the Chowder Bay Defence Fuel Installation, which involves the replacement, remediation and modernisation of the main fuel depot supporting Fleet Base East. It's likely to be a head contractor contract, and the estimated value of the works is $150 to $170 million. The two-stage open tender process is anticipated to start in the second half of the year. At Randwick Barracks now, approved investment grew by more than $40 million, but the start date was delayed by 12 months. Now, that approved investment relates to SEA4000 Aegis upgrade, an Australian combat management system upgrade to the Hobart class destroyers. Now, this facilities project will upgrade the testing and training facilities at Randwick. The RFT will go out in Q3 for head contractors, and being less than the panel threshold, it will be open to all tenderers via a two-stage open tender process. The scope consists of a combination of refit and new build. It will need significant Zone 4 spaces, and some of the works may involve upgrading the current Zone 2 buildings to achieve the Zone 4 certification and accreditation. Hence, DISP accreditation will be very important for this project, including likely NV1 clearances. 3 new projects have been added to the long-term pipeline in New South Wales. They are at HMAS Waterhen, Randwick Barracks and HMAS Penguin, as well as $190 million added to a bucket titled TBD, to be determined. Now, these are presumably related to the disposal of property at these sites as described in the estate audit report last week. Now, if you haven't downloaded a copy of the report, I suggest you do, and also check my blog articles from last week on the topic explaining the needs, why this needs to happen. They've got some really cool cartoons I think you'll enjoy, so please share them around and keep an eye out for some more articles on this topic. Looking towards the south coast of New South Wales now, and we've had the project at HMAS Albatross approved in the second half of last year. It's for facilities to support C9100, and it includes work at both HMAS Albatross and possibly Beecroft Weapons Range. Now, this project was awarded to BYCC Alliance back in October. Investment in guided weapons and explosive ordnance is growing. Approved work has increased at Jennings, which is the defence establishment on the Queensland border, as well as Orchard Hills in Sydney's west. These relate to projects under the GWIO program that's managed by Oricon. TVN on Country has been contracted for the Jennings project. Myambat, which hasn't had a significant value change, but that's being managed by Wamara. And then the Orchard Hills work comprises of 2 jobs, one by Hanson Yunkin and the other by ADCO. And down the bottom we see Defence Establishment Mulwala. That is a $220 million project that's been added to the pipeline since July, and that relates to the project 2043. It's the Defence Mulwala and Benalla facility redevelopment. Now this project involves upgrades to the existing facilities and infrastructure for domestic manufacturing of explosive ordnance. Think site-wide engineering services, explosive ordnance storage, and manufacturing facilities upgrades, as well as live fire test and evaluation facilities. And there's a really large price range, you'll notice, on this project between 200 and 950 million. So they're still trying to work out the scope and what elements of the scope will be considered part of this project. But the contracting strategy is a managing contractor model with the RFT to be released in Q2 of 2026. So there is a shortlist that's been established already from the DIP-MC panel, and that includes Acciona, Built, CPB, Icon, and Seymour White. The CFI director for this project is Cale da Costa, and the PMCA contact is Mark Kimball from GHD. Next, I'll just mention the Riverina projects. 2 of them are being delivered in New South Wales. It's part of the trifecta being delivered by CPB as the managing contractor. So the only movements in price were quite minor during the second half of last year, as CPB awarded packages to the various subcontractors. So this program also includes the Albury-Wodonga redevelopment in Victoria. Something that wasn't covered in the chart was the HQJOC project at Bungendore. HQJOC stands for Headquarters Joint Operations Command. The scope for this project includes secure working accommodation, living quarters, mess upgrades, and the supporting infrastructure. Now, due to some security sensitivities in this project, contractors are going to need to hold DISP membership and be capable of delivering facilities up to Zone 5 physical security, as well as have experience or be certified to deliver a secure compartmentalized information facility, or SCIF. This is a public-private partnership, a PPP project, and it's being project managed by Praeco Infonexus. The expressions of interest for this project closed in October, and a shortlist for the project, I'm told, has been created. It's not public yet, but the request for tenders will be released in Q1 of 2026. So the estimated contract value is between 250 and 300 million, and the CFI director is Carling Chu, and the contact at Praeco Infonexus is Lloyd Esau. Now, I've mentioned the DIP-MC. This is the Defence Infrastructure Panel for Major Construction. Just to clarify who is on that panel, here is the list. Importantly, this panel isn't national, it's regionalised, which means not all panellists are eligible to tender in all regions. New South Wales is the only region in which all panellists are eligible. Now, in case you weren't familiar with the wider Defence Infrastructure Panel, it's a group of companies that Defence uses to access a wide range of expertise. The best known of these is the PMCA panel, which includes firms like GHD, Oricon and KBR, and that's the Project Management Contract Administrator panel. But there are many other specialist sub-panels as well, and if you click on the QR code, point your phone at the QR code, you'll be able to download the PDF. But yeah, the Major Construction Panel is the newest addition, having come online in 2025. This is a pretty big shift in the way they do business. It covers projects worth over $200 million. That's that threshold I mentioned, and that allows Defence to work directly with a select group of major construction providers from now on. So many of the usual players are there. You've got the Lend-Leases and Lang O'Rourke's and the CPBs, but there's also a few newer entrants. For example, BMD, who's a long-term subcontractor, they're now stepping up into the prime role. So let's look now at Indigenous opportunities. Now these relate to opportunities that are limited to businesses with at least 50% Indigenous ownership. This year there is just one major opportunity in New South Wales, and that relates to, in fact it's a national program, the Airfield Minor Maintenance and Inspection Regime Works. So the next phase, this is the next phase of a 10-year program that's been previously delivered by Fulton Hogan, and Defence is planning to appoint 4 contractors across 4 regional areas. So the RFT is expected to happen sometime in the start of this year, with the overall program covering up to 28 sites across the country. Now, in addition to those major projects already discussed, there is one national project on the horizon that involves New South Wales, and that is EST 9111, Information and Communications Technology Mainworks. This is the mainworks for this project because it was preceded by an early works package last year, and it's valued at up to $450 million and includes facilities up to Zone 4 and associated ICT network infrastructure. So works will take place across dozens of Defence sites nationwide, including a single stage and using a single stage procurement under a managing contractor delivery model. So the RFT will be released in Q1 2026, with the shortlist apparently has already been established, although we haven't seen who's on that shortlist. So you can expect procurement of the design team by the end of the year. So Joe Morritt is the CFI director for that project, and Sunsol is the point of contact. Let's talk about design services contracts now, and I have 3 really interesting design opportunities coming to New South Wales. The first is the National Maritime Infrastructure Maintenance Program. KBR is the project manager and is currently in the market for a design services contractor. So the ITR went out in August, and we expect an RFT in the next week or 2. This involves upgrades to minor wharves and marine structures across the country, including Twofold Bay in southern New South Wales. Expect a strong showing from prominent marine structures engineers such as Oricon, Becker and GHD. The second is probably the biggest design tender in the defence infrastructure space in history. It's between $60 and $80 million in design work. It's the Guided Weapons and Explosive Ordnance Storage and Distribution Program. Facilities across Australia include Twofold Bay. So think earth-covered and hardened structures. These are really critical national assets. The ITR was released last year, and the shortlist will be announced shortly. Expect to see a shortlisted consortia made up of AECOM, Jacobs, GHD, KBR, as well as possibly Accor, Stantec, Becker, BG&E. And then lastly is the General Ranges and Training Areas redevelopment. So tenders went out in November 2025, so this is currently under evaluation. It'll flesh out the plans for major upgrades to field training areas and live firing ranges, including Holsworthy and Beecroft weapons range, with construction not expected until the 2030s. Finally, a quick word on PFAS remediation. Now, there is a dedicated branch under infrastructure division for this. This is the firefighting foam and the contamination related to that, and the environmental remediation projects that need to happen. Now, there's only one PFAS remediation project on the horizon for New South Wales, and that is at RAAF base Williamtown. The project includes soil remediation, trial of a passive barrier system for groundwater treatment, surface water treatment as well, and the disposal of a large amount of treated water. The RFP for this is expected in the next financial year. Now, looking ahead at the estate works program now. Now, all of the work expected in the next few months will be managed by Oricon, with Rochelle Stair as the point of contact in New South Wales. Now, I've got the cost band there being between $1 and $12 million. I know that's quite a big bracket. Usually we get more granularity, but Service Delivery Division is not releasing their Forward Works program until mid-year. So we currently don't have the same visibility as usual. But what we do know is there are at least 19 projects waiting to come to market in the next 6 months. Okay, there will be in Q1, there will be 3 at Williamtown that you can see there on your screen. There'll also be 1 at the Reserve Depot at Armidale and a couple at Randwick Barracks and Victoria Barracks, Sydney. You've also got 1 at Garden Island and 1 at HMAS Waterhen. Then looking into Q2, there is another batch of projects coming to Williamtown, electrical upgrades, infrastructure and building refurbishments. There's also a project at Adamstown in Newcastle, the Reserve Barracks there, 1 at Williamtown and 1 at Duck Hole Hill, which is right next to RAAF base Williamtown. There's also a couple of projects at Richmond and 1 at the Garden Island Heritage Centre. So the new PDS panel came into effect on the 1st of Feb 2026. That's Project Delivery Service. JLL has transitioned into a program level role, so you won't see much more of them. The 3 firms with the most influence over contractor selection are Oricon, Mott MacDonald and Bureau Veritas, which is formerly known as APP. So that's the 3 Charlie's Angels that you see on that image. The roadshow presentations that have in the past been delivered by Service Delivery Division, they're apparently set to resume in the second half of 2026, so keep an eye out for those. New base services contracts started last week and PDS is part of that. Here's a more comprehensive list of who's who in each of the regions. Now, there are a few different ways to stay connected to this information, as well as Defence's biannual industry briefs, which I highly recommend. There's also loads of information on the Defence website, as well as there's AusTender, as usual, a good piece of information, and then ICN as well, the ICN gateway, so stay in touch with those. And of course, there's DECnet. So DECnet aims to bring together all this information into a single, affordable monthly subscription. I run these seminars in every state and territory twice per year, as well as a member you can attend these for free, but you can also access the slide decks and the recordings for future reference. So if you're not already a member, please check it out. And don't forget to register for Collab X. It's happening in Canberra in the end of over a day and a half in the end of March. Check that out and contact me for sponsorship opportunities as well. I'll close now with a preview of what's coming next. It's called Project Helix, and it's going to be a massive upgrade that will make navigating our market intelligence so much easier and include our most requested feature, which is the ability to export your custom queries and make it easier to keep your own pipelines up to date. So stay tuned for that and much, much more in 2026. So that's all from me for now. I'll see you next week in Adelaide for the SA Regional Defence Update. And if you haven't booked yet, you can do so at decnet.com.au/events. Until then, stay safe.